Forbes Books presents Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow. Transformation for a new and better world. Here's David.
I'm back with Pierre Le Manh, the president and CEO of the Project Management Institute. PMI is the world's largest project manager community, connecting thought leaders and trendsetters around the globe. Pierre, I want to get to innovation and scaling growth. Anyone who listened to the first part of our talk can feel your passion about education, innovation, and upskilling. There's organic innovation, and then there's inorganic methods like roll-ups and add-ons. What's your preference and thoughts on the mix?
I don't necessarily think of it that way in the sense of all innovation has to be organic or you have to make acquisitions. There's no better way. I think there are different starting points. Some companies are simply not very good, to be honest, at innovating. Part of it could be because they have risk aversion that happens, or simply because they don't have the kind of talents that are required to do that. But if they're good at scanning the market, finding the companies and the people that they want to acquire, and then good at integrating them and scaling them, that's also a very good model. In fact, I think we all try to do a little bit of both. As a CEO, you have a limited amount of time to show proof of your concepts, right? So once you have a strategy and you have defined with a lot of intentionality where you want to play and not play, then you need to make some moves that give confidence to everyone else that you're serious about it and that it's going to work. That's where usually you use acquisitions, because that's the fastest way a CEO can make a difference, is by illustrating how to bring to life a new strategy by making a bold move like that you can make on your own almost as your CEO, right? You can do this with 5 people in your company and bankers and lawyers, and you can make that move pretty quickly. And of course, your board of directors. So that's the way I see it. You use acquisitions to accelerate the move that you're trying to make as part of your strategy, but then organic innovation, if you have the right teams for that, is of course a fantastic way to bring differentiated ideas and create a real competitive edge, at least in terms of ideas, right? It may not be the competitive edge in terms of skill, because that depends a lot on execution, but at least in terms of creating a value that is unique to the market, organic is usually the best way to do it, if you can. But, I don't believe personally that the quality of ideas is the only important thing, right? The way you can scale, which depends a lot on your discipline in terms of project management, for instance, makes 90% of the difference in the end. So whether you innovate organically or through bolt-on acquisitions, I think is not that important.
It's how you execute. Am I right? And your people and your processes and your strategy and your execution.
And how you scale, right? With a great innovation and product in the lab, it's a very different thing to have it on the market.
Okay, as focusing directly, and as you lead PMI, what are your top priorities of the organization in the next few years, and how you're going to make it happen?
Yeah, so PMI is an incredible organization in the sense of we are the largest community of project managers or project professionals in the world. So that's a fantastic legacy. We have a very engaged community of professionals who love to learn from each other, who love to exchange ideas, who love to learn together. So that's an asset. And as an organization, PMI, we provide tools to them. We provide learning and development. We provide events. We provide opportunities for them to meet and learn. And of course, we provide professional certifications that are recognized across borders and across industries. Now, what I want us to do in the coming years is, first of all, I want us to lead the AI transformation of project management. That is going to be a very important topic for us. And we discussed this a little earlier in our conversation, but I really believe that for project managers, it will be similar to what happened to traders on the floors, right? On the trading floors. They used to be there physically negotiating acting, and then now it's all the execution of all of this is done by computers, and they're a little bit on the outside to manage the system. For project managers, it's going to be the same. I don't know if Gartner is right to say that 80% of project management tasks will be automated, but I do know that project professionals will have to go from the inside to the outside. They will have to extract themselves from pure execution of writing minutes, writing reports. All of that will be automated by AI. We can already do it. It's not that complicated. And extract themselves and manage the system from the outside, which is, for instance, making sure that stakeholders stay engaged, that the project scope is still delivering the value to the organization that it should deliver, making sure that the people you recruit are well managed. So it's all about being on the outside of the tasks to manage a system and be accountable for it. That's the evolution for the profession. So I want us to lead that, and I want the whole profession then to be able to also lead the AI transformation of their own companies, because a lot will be also about execution, which is what project managers do. The second thing that I really want us to focus on, and that relates to the question we were discussing before, which is the purpose, right? What is the purpose of what you're doing? In the case of the Project Management Institute, PMI, our purpose is truly about maximizing project success, and we should never forget that. So I want us increasingly to be able to understand all the drivers and measure all the drivers of project success in all sorts of industries, types of projects, so that we increase the success rate of projects. And the success rate of project also has to be defined in a way that is maybe a little more adapted to a very uncertain world that we're living today. So for instance, before, when I said before, it could be decades ago, you could define project success a long time in advance. Today, because the world is changing constantly, because innovation is coming to the world constantly, you can't define 6 years or 10 years before what success will look like, right? So you have to be able to define this in a dynamic way and make sure that your projects will evolve in a natural way to deliver the value that the organizations are looking for. So I want us to own this redefinition of project success and the understanding of the factors that help you being successful when you run projects in a very dynamic environment. And then finally, I would say, if I had a third objective that I have for the decades to come, the world economy keeps growing. There's a sweet spot for the project economy, so people managing large projects especially, which is somewhere between, when a country is between $4,000 of GDP per capita up to $18,000. That's the sweet spot, because below that, countries usually don't have the resources to invest in projects. And above that, a lot of big projects have already been accomplished, right? So it's really the sweet spot where we're seeing this huge growth in the project economy. And we have many countries in the world that are exactly between the $4,000 and $18,000 of GDP per capita. So what I would like us to do is to make sure we touch more people, we engage more people, we enroll more project professionals in these markets, right? It is very important for us to develop globally in these markets. Right now, PMI does about 1/3 of its activity in the US, 1/3 in China, and 1/3 in the rest of the world. That rest of the world, especially in the large emerging markets like Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, even in some Latin American countries, we still have a massive potential to grow, but we can only grow if we do breed a new generation of project professionals, and that's a big mission for us.
So you're on one sense, a distribution push, and then at the other sense, you're taking a look at how the markets are changing, whether or not it's AI and whether or not you need to do things differently, and try to lead a roadmap as you grow and as growth occurs and as how markets change. So that, my question is, how simple is that, or how complex is that? And on the complexity side, you seem to be able to navigate, complex organizations. What do you do in order to navigate the complex situations and make it simple?
Complexity is a reality. It's not necessarily a choice. Simplicity, of course, is important for all of us, because it's very difficult to scale anything if you're too complex. But I would like to say, though, that complexity sometimes, if you can manage it decently, it gives you a massive competitive advantage and also a lot of resilience. Biosystems are very resilient because they are very complex. So the tendency or the temptation to oversimplify, I believe, is overvalued. And I know that what I'm saying right now could be shocking to some, but trying to simplify too much may give you very early on some benefits, like less costs, less headaches. But the complexity, if you can master it, or a certain level of complexity, will also make you very resilient, and also will enable you to adjust to a changing environment and heal and find a new footing better than by having everything aligned 100%, right? So I just wanted to say that. This is not to say that we should not work on being simple. For instance, when we talk about framing things, your narrative, your purpose, the reason why you exist, the reason why you're doing what you're doing, that has to be pretty simple and expressed in a very simple way. So all your teams can understand it and find their way when there is a lot of uncertainty around it, when there are big disruptions, including, for instance, when the company is sold, or when some decisions are made, or when competitive activity makes your future a little less clear. So that's why the whole framing in your narrative has to be simple. Where you want to go, how you want to go there, needs to be simple. But then allowing some complexity, allowing very diverse profiles, allowing teams to get their own way, even if it's not fully aligned, maybe even if it doesn't sound completely optimal from a cost perspective, for instance, is important. That's how I think as a CEO, you can help master or help your company learn how to master complexity and guarantee, in my opinion, at least, maybe not a maximization of your short-term gains, but definitely a much better and longer success for your organization.
Okay, that gives you an idea into your mind and how you're thinking. So I appreciate that very much. As you move forward and you're driving growth, the big question that I have here is, how do you do it? Is it that I can tell by talking to you, you're a very humble person, and then, you're unassuming. And what is your magic or persuasion, and what is your actual value added that you see yourself that you really have that has been able to propel you to such tremendous success as a global leader?
We will learn from our personal backgrounds, familial background. I was the other day with the head of tech at PMI, and the guy is from India. He came from a very poor village, and telling the story of how as a child he was taming elephants, and it may not sound like there is any relationship with what he's doing now, but it does, because precisely he had to learn how to do things that are potentially dangerous and difficult with a lot of humility, as you said before, and also with a lot of passion. Right? So he's reapplying that. And I think that for me and for anyone else, you probably want to go back to your childhood, to the things you've learned, to the specific advantages that your audition, that your background gives you, and we all have those stories, and rely on that. So in my case, I was born and raised in a bicultural family. My dad is Vietnamese, my mom is French. It's two very different cultures, totally different cultures. And as a child, and I only realized that way later, as an adult, but as a child, I spent my time almost translating between my parents, like explaining to my dad why my mom was reacting the way she was, which was natural to me, and explaining to my mom what my dad meant, because he was speaking in a way that was weird to her. One way or another, it worked. My parents are still together. They're in their late 80s, so understanding each other may not be fully necessary, but in my case, it gave me a sort of a superpower to understand different cultures and feeling natural in a very ambiguous environment where rules are not very clear, are actually multiple. So I leverage that. And what I try to do with my teams is to get them to think about similar situations that may not look the same, right? So for instance, if you work in an industry like the one I'm working right now, which is about reskilling, upskilling, edtech, and a community business in a way, I always try to take examples of other industries because I see patterns, I see commonalities that may not be obvious, but once you explain that to people, it elevates their world in a way, it opens them their mindset to situations that may not be directly replicable, but instead of trying to apply a recipe, it makes them think, and that's what I think is the way I try to help my teams think a little bit more out of the box and come up with creative solutions to the problems that they're facing.
If you were discussing, let's say, to your extensive membership and as well as our listeners, as what was the number one thing that we should do to improve what we do on our project management, what would you say it is?
First of all, project management is a science. Yes, it's an art to an extent, but it's a science. So the first thing you need to do is to apply project management techniques and approaches and principles. Most people don't know anything about that. They don't understand the concept of risk. They don't understand the concept of stakeholder management. They don't have a proper communication plan. They don't list even the objectives of a project before starting. If you don't do any of that, there's a chance that you will not get anywhere. So respecting the fact that project management is something you can learn, and of course practice, and that there is a science behind it, is the number one advice that I would give to people.
What's your hope of the legacy that you're going to leave at PMI and beyond in this world?
I hope I can show that we moved from touching a couple of million people in our industry to tens of millions of people that would have joined that movement and learned together and understood the benefit of being part of a community that supports you instead of trying to do things on your own in your own company. There's a big family of project professionals of tens of millions of people worldwide that is ready to welcome you. So I'd like to see as my legacy to have been able to move from a few millions to tens of millions of people as part of our community, one way or another. That we have led the AI transformation of project management. But that's just a step, because after AI, there will be other things as well. It's more about making sure we are keeping this profession relevant and help it in their transformation.
And Pierre, what's your legacy that you'd like to leave?
Well, if I can contribute to an extent to having more diverse ways of thinking in the corporate world, as opposed to always follow the same recipes, I'd be very happy. If people can look at me once I retire, once I'm done, and say, all the companies that Pierre has run have been able to change their game plan, transform, think more broadly, expand even their markets and their approaches to things, that would be a big legacy for me. I want to see this happen. And frankly, I also would want to see the people who have worked with me, and many people have worked with me now, all say that I made a big difference in their career because I helped them with one thing at least that was massive to them. Either learn something, think differently, or have a very successful few years working with me that helped them then gain confidence and find their own way and reapply somewhere else.
Pierre, if you'd be kind enough to share lessons on both alpha and impact that you've learned.
I remember a story that happened to me now probably about 20 years ago. I was working in this company and I was running a region for that company. I was running Europe. And the founder, and our largest client was Procter & Gamble. So, a very large CPG company, very professional in multiple ways, right? And it was by far our largest client. So meeting with them was always a little stressful. You didn't want to mess up with them. We had a huge business with them in Europe, in all regions of the world, in the US, of course. So we meet with them one day with the founder of the company. And they were talking a lot about our prices and feel that we were, of course, not price competitive enough and trying to put, push and pressure the prices down. And they actually asked, how much money are you making working with us? And that's a difficult question when a client would ask something like that, because you're not sure exactly how much transparency you want to bring to that discussion. And the founder of the company, and that was a big leadership lesson for me, actually told them, I'm going to share with you our full P&L of our activities with you in full transparency. And we left that meeting all being a little concerned about that, but he said, no, we have to be totally transparent, and that's the best way we can pursue a long-term relationship with this client. And we did this. We shared our entire P&L. They saw that we were making good money in some areas, not so much money in other areas. And to me, and in the end, our business with them continued to thrive, right? So that did not have any negative consequence. If anything, we're able to actually renegotiate our prices in some areas or work with them collaboratively on how we could all, on one side, lower our prices, but also for us make more money. And I found that this transparency, but also the way he gave us permission in a way to be transparent with the client by this very simple answer he gave at that critical moment in the discussion, which was to say, yes, I'm going to share with you our entire P&L of the business we do with you, was a great leadership lesson that I've been since then, reapplying, to be honest, trying to be very transparent with people and not fear, and give permission to our teams, not fear when transparency becomes an important component of your relationship with anyone.
Transparency, much appreciated. We're talking with Pierre Le Manh. Thank you very, very much, Pierre. I know we've learned a tremendous amount, and we can't thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
To connect with David, go to davidradlow.com. David's book set, The Principles of Cartel Disruption and Secret Stories of Leadership, Growth, and Innovation, are available wherever books are sold. This has been Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow, a presentation of Forbes Books.